Hey guys, now today we're going to be having a bit of fun and exploring this vintage PC that I've been building up over the last couple of months. Now I've got this set up in the kitchen today to give me a little bit more room to work with. I will say first of all, excuse the garish wallpaper and tablecloth. The wife picked the decor for this room, so I've kind of got my revenge today by setting up this beast of a PC on her expensive Laura Ashley kitchen table, so you know, give and take. But today is going to kind of be a bit more of an off-the-cuff video, and I just wanted to show you this PC that I've been building up probably since about November last year. It's taken me a couple of months to kind of track down all the parts and get it spec to the level I want it at now. But really the idea was to get a PC built that was typical of around 1992 or 1993, as if you watch my videos before, you'll know that I was an Amiga fanboy back then. You know, I didn't have a PC at home. I had an Amiga 500, then a 1200, but I did use Windows and MS-DOS PCs at school and at friends' houses, so I was familiar with them, but really there's probably a lot from that era that I didn't get to experience properly, not having a machine at home. So that was the idea, to get an old school 486 PC build put together and kind of explore some of the software and games that I didn't get to try out on a PC back then. So as you can see from the setup, it is, you know, very typical of an early 90s PC. It's a 486 DX2 based Intel machine. I got this nice little MIDI case off eBay before Christmas. Now I did want something that was, you know, of the time, not a more modern case, and it has got all the features that you'd expect of an early 90s PC. We've got like a turbo button on there, a reset switch, you know, the hard disk and power LEDs and all that kind of thing on here too, a nice Intel badge on the top there, and also we've got the floppy disk, you know, 3.5 inch and 5.25 inch bays here too. I've got a CD-ROM drive installed at the moment, but I'll talk a bit more about that in a few minutes because I'm not too happy with that bit. We'll fix that up in the next couple of months. But also, I was a little bit disappointed when the case arrived, as it took me a long time to find a case that I really liked on eBay, and it looked mint condition. But then the seller, he shipped it to me and literally put like one layer of bubble wrap around it. And then it arrived and it had a big smash in the corner of the case. So as you can imagine, I was a bit disappointed by that. Luckily managed to get quite a substantial refund, and the seller told me just to keep it. You know, I think I got it for about 25% of the asking price in the end. So I did super glue it back together and decided to keep it, but you know, it's not mint condition now, so maybe I will swap it for a better condition one at some point. And also I managed to track down a vintage IBM keyboard here as well. Now, as you can see, it's got the Windows 3.1 logo, Windows keys on here too. It's not a mechanical keyboard, but it does feel pretty nice to type on. And I've also got a mouse as well. Now this is a, you know, pretty typical serial mouse from the early 90s, a 3-button variant. Unfortunately, I've got a bit of a problem with it. Now, it does work all right for a bit, but then maybe, you know, someone who's a bit more clued up on MS-DOS or Windows 3.1 can help me out here. It works for about 2 minutes, and then the mouse will completely lock up for about 30 seconds and then start working again. Now, I've tried changing the drivers and settings and all that kind of thing, but I haven't managed to get it running smoothly. So for this video today, yeah, don't giggle. Instead, we're going to be using the only other serial mouse I've got, which is this mouse here, designed for 5 to 9-year-olds. And yeah, it's called the Kiddie Mouse. It's in the shape of looks like a bear's paw, I think. It is a 3-button mouse again, quite small in the hand, so you kind of, you know, hold it like that. But it's actually not too bad, you know, it's nice clicky buttons on it, it's quite responsive, and I've got no problems with this one at all. So today in the video, we are going to be using the Kiddie Mouse until I get that other one working. And I've also got the PC connected up to an Acorn monitor. Now, obviously Acorn didn't make PC compatible machines. This is off an Acorn Archimedes, but luckily it does accept the standard PC output, the Super VGA mode I've got here, and it is a monitor of that era. It came out in 1992. It's a 14-inch CRT, so it kind of does tie into that authentic look that I wanted for this machine. So we'll get more into what I've got installed and try out some software in a bit, but right now we'll get the case open and I'll show you a few of the additions and cards I've got installed. Now, one really nice thing about this case is when I've undone the screws, actually, it all kind of slides off as one panel. So, yeah, both sides of it actually just completely come free. So then, I will need to turn it around the other way so you can see it on camera. There you go, so look at the ports I've got on the back of the machine. Hopefully I'm getting all that in on camera. As you can see, one nice thing that you don't actually get on modern power supplies is a monitor pass-through. So that is quite handy. It means that you can have one less thing plugged into the wall socket. Saves you on a plug, which, very scarce in my house, actually. I've pretty much used up every one in my office. So you plug in your standard kettle lead into there. We have 2 serial ports here as well, one of which I've disabled due to having... that thing that we all miss about these classic PCs. DMA and IRQ conflicts with my sound card. Yeah, I was in DMA and IRQ conflict hell for about a week. We have a standard parallel port there as well. And I've got a couple of cards installed here too. I'll quickly show you on the back. We have just a generic graphics card. I'm actually sure on the make of this, but we'll have a closer look at it in a moment. Sound Blaster 16, and I've got a network card in here as well with a BNC connector and Ethernet 2. So yes, my machine is online. Now here we go. Look at that lovely cable management. Yeah, it's not the most tidy machine, but again, it's pretty typical of a PC of the era, really. So, like I said, we've got a Sound Blaster 16, a Vibra card in there as well. What's that graphics card then? Let me have a little closer look in there. There you go. The only chip that we have on there is a Sirius Logic chip. So it's a Sirius card by the looks of it. They're definitely not in the graphics card business anymore. With an interesting little header there. I'm not sure what that does exactly, but we'll put that back in. And looking a bit more closely at the motherboard, it was kind of that changeover period when PCs were moving away from the old school ISA cards into PCI, because we actually have both on this board here. We have 4 ISA slots and then 3 PCI ports here as well. None of which I've used yet, so I have got some more space to expand. We've got, all 3 PCI ports are available and 1 ISA port on the bottom there as well, which actually... I'll show you in a moment what I'm going to install there. We also have a little fan there too. Now, PCs of this era actually ran quite cool. They didn't need all the insane cooling that my modern PC with an i7 uses. Literally a little 12-volt fan just on top of the 486 chip there. Then we have the floppy drive and a cd-rom drive. Now, unfortunately, the cd-rom drive, if you can see it there on camera, I'm not actually too happy with that drive. Now, it looks all right in the case, it's the same color and everything, and it's an IDE drive, so I've been playing a few CD-ROM games and all that, and they do completely, run fine on it. The only thing is, it is a 48-speed drive, and it was manufactured in late 2000, so it's not really a proper drive of this vintage. I want a drive that fits in with that kind of 1992, 93 kind of era. So instead, what we're going to do over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to install this ISA card. It is a SCSI adapter. So that means I can then replace that drive with something a bit more fitting from 1992, this old school CD-ROM drive, which actually reminds me of the drives that we used at school on our first multimedia PCs. It uses caddies. So yeah, some people find these a pain, but these actually do remind me, they're very nostalgic for me. You put the drive in these little cases and then you push it into the drive. So that drive will be getting swapped out for this one when I get around to, finding the drivers and everything for it. But for this video, we'll stick with this drive I've got installed and working already. So as you can see, there's not really anything majorly exciting in there. It is a pretty typical 486 PC that you would have found back in the day. But I'll put it back together now and show you some of the things I've got installed. Now, time to check out a few of the programs I've got installed on this 486 PC. Now, I am recording this on my camera off a CRT monitor, which usually don't come out all that well on camera. I have tried to sync my camera to the refresh rate, and I've dimmed the lights to hopefully make it a little bit clearer, so hopefully you're not getting too much kind of screen roll and flickering. Now, we're on the DOS prompt here. I'll type in Win, and we'll check out what I've got on Windows 3.1. As you can look here on screen, I've got Windows for Workgroups version 3.11 installed. The reason for that is, like I showed you before, I've got a network card in here, and I did want to get this machine online, as I do remember using stuff like Netscape and that at school back in the day, so it would be kind of cool to experience that kind of era again, I thought. And as you can hear, this Acorn monitor has actually got built-in speakers, so that is quite useful. It means I don't need some big PC speakers on the desk. Now, I do remember here, and upon playing with this, you don't actually have to log in. You can press cancel and it still works, but we will just log in anyway. Good old Windows security. Oh, and I remember that wallpaper. Now, it looks a little bit different to a standard Windows 3.1 install. I've actually got a bit of third-party software on here as well called, Calamara version 2, which gives you a Windows 95 style start menu, which actually can be quite handy. But, we'll do it old school. We'll go into the Program Manager. And here you go. Here's quite a few things installed. Paintbrush, of course, if you used Windows 3.1 back in the old days, you'll be all too familiar with this. In Windows 10, they actually finally got rid of Paint, didn't they? And put that Paint 3D thing in, I think. But there you go. Yeah, I remember messing around with this for hours on friends' computers and at school back in the old days. We'll get rid of that. We've got Notepad on here as well, the old school version. Hasn't changed all that much over the years, really. Still a very simple and easy to use text editor. We'll say no to that. Write, it was a more advanced version. You could change like fonts and stuff in here too. And again, a lot of this, has kind of survived in Windows to this day. What else? We've got the clock. Was that like kind of a square kind of thing? Yeah, look at that. Into a digital clock. Yeah, the date's correct on it. Yeah, it hasn't actually got one of those big old barrel batteries. It's got one of the smaller CR2032 batteries in this machine quite handily. Media player, we have the calculator here as well. All the standard Windows 3.1 stuff, which if you used it back then, you'll be all too familiar with those. We won't spend too long messing around with those. Let's see what I've got installed on here though. Now, I did mention about getting this machine online, so I think if we go on to internet, there you go, I've got Netscape installed on here. And this version of Netscape is from 1996. So this could have been, one of the first versions of Netscape I ever used, because we did get a few PCs online at my school. In probably about 95, there was like 4 PCs that were connected to the internet, and you'd have to book out an hour at a time, probably days in advance to get on there. They were that popular. And the home page I've got set on here at the moment is a search engine called Wibby. Now Wibby's pretty cool because it lets you exclusively search classic websites that are based on HTML 1.0. So if you want to get something that is going to run on your old machine, for example, let's search for Netscape here, and there you go. Welcome to Netscape. Click on there. Yeah, good start. It wasn't found. As you can see, it's a Yahoo page. It still renders all right in HTML 1.0. We'll scroll down, see what else we can find. Utilities for Windows 95 and Netscape. So I imagine that's probably an authentic website from the time. There you go, from 1998. And this is more, what I remember websites looking like back then. Very text heavy, not too many graphics, and they render all right on these old machines. So yeah, Wibby's a really good search engine if you've got a classic computer connected to the internet and you want to kind of get some sites that are going to work with it. We've got here a brief history of the internet. Oh, and that's crashed Netscape. There you go. Good start. We'll come out of that now, I think, then. Don't want to get a blue screen of death. So what else have we got installed on here then? We've got Microsoft Office, which I think has actually got its own little folders here. Yeah, loads of them in here. I do remember using Microsoft Word at school as well, after we swapped from Acorn machines to Windows PCs. Probably in about 95 they started coming in, and we did have some Windows 3.1 machines. So there you go, that classic Microsoft Word UI on here as well. That I still actually do prefer this today to the more modern Word. It's got a bit overly complicated in the end. And really, there are not that many features that I've used in Word that have been added in the last 2 decades, really. You want to change your fonts and print it out and save it. PDF exporting is quite handy, but really, it does feel like these days I kind of add stuff on for the sake of it. So yeah, we'll say no to that. Okay, so we've come out of Windows and back into MS-DOS. So I thought we'd check out a few of the games I've got installed on here. So let's have a little look. What's installed? Done a dir command. We can see all the things I've got on the hard disk here. Now, it is only quite a small hard disk by today's standards. I think about 500 megabytes. I did get that with a motherboard that I ordered. So it's kind of, it's a hard disk kind of the time, which I will probably either add a second disk, which will probably make life easier, or maybe even expand this one a little bit. Let's see what we've got in here. Dooms. Yeah, we couldn't have a PC of the era without Doom installed now, could we? I wonder how well it runs on a 486. We have the sound effects coming through the Sound Blaster and the music, which is quite good. Oh, come on, ultraviolence. Yeah, actually runs alright. I do remember friends running Doom on 486 machines, even 386s I think. Probably didn't run it as smooth as this, but I remember most people would run it on a Pentium. I'm trying to play this at a weird angle, so we'll come out of Doom. Now here's a great game from the early 90s. I was a big fan of on the Mega Drive. Don't think I've already played the PC version much. Very nice sound effects and music on it. Does sound nicer than the Mega Drive version.
it starts.
There's Simba. Nope. Now, these games are a little bit weird to be playing with a keyboard because, like I said, I was always either an Amiga kid or my brother had a Mega Drive. So if I had a PC back then, I probably would have had a joystick for it. Playing these kind of platform games with a keyboard does feel very unnatural to me. But the scrolling's not too bad. I mean, it is a little bit jerky at times. But really, this was the era where PCs were kind of coming into their own with gaming, especially with the 3D graphics chipsets coming in, but these kind of 2D scrollers were really a little bit more natural on consoles, I think. So we'll come out of that. Now here is another classic I remember playing around a friend's house when I was a kid, Epic Pinball. I'm not getting any sound on this though, so maybe, yeah, it's coming through the PC speaker. I might have to configure it to work with the Sound Blaster. But it reminded me a lot of Pinball Dreams and Pinball Fantasies that I used to love. Very similar kind of game. I think they did come out on the PC as well. I actually have one of them installed on here. But yeah, quite a smooth pinball game for the time. And for a bit of a comparison, I thought I'd launch Pinball Fantasies, as I've just spotted I did install that as well. Using the Sound Blaster 16, sounding really nice. Let's check out what the graphics look like on the PC version of it, as I was a big fan of this on the Amiga, and I've got this on the Atari Jaguar and 3DO, a few other systems as well. And actually the graphics look a lot more high res on here. That scrolling is really smooth. And I think it's using 256 colour mode by the looks of it, so let's get into it. Got flippers. Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, and I could quite happily sit here and play this all night, so we better come out of that. Now, this is a game that has a lot of nostalgia for me because I remember my friend at school, Mandip, he actually had an Amstrad PC, and this was one of the games that we used to play quite a bit when we went around his house, a game called Crime Wave, which was a kind of very cheesy, very 80s looking game actually, but I remember we did used to play this game quite a lot. Let's start at the beginning. And it was a side-scroller that didn't run all that great. Yeah, it doesn't look the best today, but yeah, we used to have quite a lot of fun with this. I remember the way the arms and the legs used to fly off. That used to entertain me quite a bit as a kid. And I could honestly sit here playing games all night, but I didn't want to keep this video too long. I just thought I'd show you one quick thing before we wrap up today, and that is the BIOS setup of this machine, which is pretty cool actually for the time. It looks a bit like Windows 3.1, but it's actually a GUI point-and-click BIOS configuration tool, which I haven't actually seen on a machine of this era. An AMI BIOS, American Megatrends, who of course still make BIOSes today, but you can click through and change all your various options from this quite intuitive point-and-click interface. So yeah, it's a lot easier even than my modern PC, I think, in many ways, at configuring stuff. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool just to show off. So there you go, that's been a look at my 486 PC build in progress, you could say. If anyone's got any suggestions on things I should maybe add to this machine, anything cool I could maybe do with it, please do leave a comment. And thank you for watching. I will have another video out next week. Hopefully I will see you then.